Thank you so much, Mary, for those very generous words. Bill, this definitely goes in your suitcase. It's really heavy. And thank you, Mary, for championing giving me this award. It means a tremendous amount to me to be among so many friends and people I've known for so long and people I reconnected with, some of whom I hadn't seen for a long time. I'm also honored to be among the incredible group of women who are being recognized tonight. Congratulations to all of you. And it's also meaningful to me that personal role models of mine like Sue Tierney and Gina McCarthy have won this award before. Thank you for giving me credit for inspiring NEWIEE. I'm not sure I did anything, but I was there at the predecessor to NEWIEE group, although I was definitely not the founder. I think Mary Beth Gentleman and Janet Besser and Sue Tierney were the founders. We called it Women in Energy. Yes. Yeah. We could have just as easily called it Women Getting Together for Wine. We met in a conference room at Foley Hoag. It wasn't even a large conference room at Foley Hoag. We could easily fit in a small conference room. One time I was asked, it was my turn to host, but New England Electric at that time had a very strict rule against alcohol on the premises, so that idea was scotched right away, no pun intended. Really happy to have my husband here, Bill Kunzik, on his behalf, and my whole family that's supported me and lived through all my ups and downs. Happy to have Jessica Cockrell, who's a representative of my team at FERC. She's a technical advisor in my office for more than 2 years. In my 9 years at FERC, I've been blessed with amazing teams. Lisa Luftig, who was one of my early advisors, is somewhere in the audience. It's going to be really hard to say goodbye to them. I thought I would take my time here to share a few career reflections. I organized them around a few song titles to keep it maybe from being too boring, to share some different elements. I'll start with an old Freddie Cannon song, Boston, My Hometown. Except for college and my time at FERC, I've lived in Massachusetts my whole life. This was where I was raised and where I spent the first 30 years of my career, and where I plan to return after I finish at FERC. One of the things I've loved about being at FERC is the opportunity to meet and make friends with people from all around the country and learn so much from them. But at the end of the day, this is where I'll come back because this is home. And that's one reason it's especially meaningful to be with this group of you tonight. My second song is an old disco song by Donna Summer, She Works Hard for the Money. Especially for this money, but even before, when I was making private sector money, I worked hard for it. I spent the first 30 years or so of my career in the private sector. I worked in a law firm for 8 years, but I didn't really find my footing there or my calling until I got a part-time job at the late great New England Electric System in 1986. And right from the beginning, my first assignment was to work on a mediation that related to a coal-fired ship that brought coal up to New England. So you can see how long ago this was. I found out that I actually loved learning about energy issues. I especially liked being at the intersection of energy and the environment and some of the early conservation and load management programs. I know Steve Cowell's in the audience, other people who were part of the shaping of those days. And I took great satisfaction of being part of an industry that I knew every home and business needed. So after a while, I really figured out this was it. This was my job. I was a lifer. But of course, that's not what happened. So that's my next song is Neil Sedaka's Breaking Up is Hard to Do. Overall, I had a wonderful 21 years at New England Electric, which later became National Grid, and it established my life's path. But it's not a secret to anyone who was there that it did not end well. I was extremely open, that I was disappointed that after nearly a year of running the company as acting CEO, I wasn't chosen for the permanent position and my time at the company came to an end. And I really had a rough couple of years career-wise after that. I had a non-compete, I couldn't do anything energy, and I just flailed around in different things that I didn't belong in until I eventually, kind of the 2 years came to an end and I started to try to network back into the energy space, probably emailing many of you. And what happened, some of you have probably heard this, But one day, Bill and I were driving to Farrell Volvo to pick up our station wagon, and I got a completely unexpected cold call from the Obama White House asking if I wanted to be on the list from FERC commissioner. I have had people, even people on the Hill, deny to me that this happened, because this is not what happened, but this is absolutely what happened. I am the urban legend that this happened to. And which leads to my next song from Hamilton, I'm Not Gonna Miss My Shot. I was not stupid enough to say no. I immediately said, yes, 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 I would let you in the list to be a FERC commissioner. You know it's in Washington? It's like, yes, I know it's in Washington. Yes, yes, I know FERC is in Washington. That ultimately led, it was kind of a long process after that, but 9 months later, I was seated at FERC. And I went from being completely out of energy. In fact, I think I was talking to Dan Dolan, who's in the audience, even after it was rumored that somebody from Massachusetts from National Grid was going to be nominated to FERC, nobody suspected me. That's how out of energy I was. They could have said somebody whose initials are CL and people would have chosen other people. So I went from being as out of energy as you could be to as in the middle of it as you could be, and I was just as happy as could be. I was meeting lots of people, working on fascinating issues, learning a lot, and before I knew it, honestly, 9 months turned into 9 years. I mean, like everything in life, everything in your career, it's had its ups and downs. I've changed titles 5 times. If you go in the place at FERC where they put the pictures, they had to give like an extra large plaque under mine because I've had so many different titles. And I've had more experience with acting titles than anyone should ever have. But overall, it's been an amazing, life-changing experience. I came to Washington without a political agenda. That was weird even in the beginning, and it's way weirder now. But I just tried to learn the work and try to do the right thing on each docket. And I've just really taken tremendous satisfaction from being able to work on issues that make a difference, like the evolution of the wholesale markets for changes in the resource mix, the protection of the grid from high-impact threats, and the growing consideration of climate issues, especially in our pipeline work. When I interview summer interns, they almost always ask something along the lines of, do you work on green energy? And I always say, we work on the unsexy underbelly of every important energy issue. If you want to work on the front page thing, don't come to FERC. But if you want to work on the tariff changes that underlie it, that's what we do. I know many people in this room in various different ways work at that same intersection between the nation's energy choices and climate issues. And you're fortunate to do so in a region that's really very engaged and advanced in thinking about those issues, even though they haven't solved them. And I think the region and the nation are very, very lucky that all of you are focused on it. As far as me, all good things have to come to an end, and I was really honest at the end of January when I was informed that I wouldn't be nominated for another term. I always get really annoyed when I'm watching CNN and I hear people in government say they want to spend more time with their family, and then the next day or maybe the next tweet, you find out that their successor has been appointed. And so I decided I didn't want to be one of those people who claimed that I just chose to leave. I was going to be honest. Nobody would believe it anyway. I'm sorry, Bill, but But here I am now planning my next steps, and I'm at a different stage in my life, a very different stage from the last time I had a transition. So my next song is the Beatles' When I'm 64, because I am 64. I'm not 100% it hasn't 100% sunk in that I'm really leaving FERC later this year, but I definitely am. But I'm starting to get really excited about the future. I expect to stay active in energy and really just try to use my experience to help in the transition to the energy system of the future, because I know there's a lot of different ways you can be a part of that. Probably not in a single full-time role, but in a portfolio of engagements that I'll be working on as I go forward. I just want to close with one more song title, which is I Get By With Little Help From My Friends. Originally, I had to Google this, originally the Beatles, but it was covered by Joe Cocker at Woodstock, which I know my husband claims he was at, but yeah, whatever. Could be true, but yeah. I definitely have needed a little help from my friends at every stage of my career and at every stage of my life, and I would be pretty confident in saying that all of us need a little help from each other and from our friends. And that's why organizations like this, NEWIEE, the Old Women in Energy, and all the career circles that you all participate in are so important for connecting us to people whom we're meant to learn from, people who can help us and support us in our journey. So thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for this great honor and for your continuing friendship. Thank you.